Welcome to our first episode of the Talking Engagement podcast. I'm Amy Berry and I'll be your host. I'm excited to kick off season 1 with a conversation with a great team of educators from Mawson Primary School. I've had the pleasure of being connected with them over the last couple of years and learning alongside of them as they've transformed their approach to supporting learner engagement. Mawson Primary School is one of only 3 bilingual schools in the Australian Capital Territory, or ACT, and the only one that offers a Mandarin Immersion Program, or MIP, where 50% of the curriculum is taught in Mandarin and 50% in English. It's been so interesting to explore how the continuum can be used in this program, and we'll hear more about that in this episode. It was great to have a whole group of inspiring educators join us, each with their own insights and experience. Joining us in this episode are Lydia Kepich, small group teacher, Olivia Leonard, kindergarten teacher, Joanne Hurley, Mandarin teacher, Laura Medley, Year 5-6 teacher, and Leanne Harrigan, executive teacher in the Year 5-6 team and leader of their engagement work at Mawson. Let's dive into the conversation.
We've had a technology expert come in and set us all up with our fancy little speaker thing.
Oh, fantastic. It's so great to see the whole crew there.
Yeah. So we've got Lydia from small group, and then Olivia from the Falling Off the Engagement team.
Love it.
We have Joanne representing the Mandarin teachers, and then Laura, who created the giant wall of engagement, and who's representing the senior school.
Yeah. Great. So I will begin by saying welcome to the podcast and thank you for coming on and joining me here and sharing your story, your amazing story and journey that you've had at Mawson Primary School. So I think maybe we'll start by getting Leanne to tell us a little bit about how the work began and how you got started on your journey.
Yes, so we have been a visible learning school and began our visible learning journey since 2018. And we came to a realization that students could tell us the dispositions and characteristics of what a visible learner was, but we felt there was a missing link and we weren't actually seeing their learning behaviours in the classroom as what we wanted to see, that what they were telling us that what a visible learner was. So we felt that students knew what to do and what learning should feel like and what learning should look like, but they required a scaffold of how to actually get there. And we felt that your work, Amy, was the missing link in this puzzle. And we felt that you filled the gap, gave us the language and gave, through the engagement continuum, gave the students the tool and the teachers the tool in order to give the scaffold of how to move from all of the visible learning characteristics and dispositions.
And I guess I love hearing that because I think one of the secrets to your success, aside from a lot of amazingly dedicated people and really hard work, is your ability to be able to connect the dots and see how this work complements and fits in with other things that you have in place within the school. And I don't take that for granted because I think a lot of schools get stuck at that point. They're interested and they start trying to use it and playing around with it, but they can get stuck when they can't see how it fits in with everything else. So I think that's been a real success of yours. And so I got 2 questions. One is, did you recognize that this might be a good connector, a good scaffold, as you say, for some of the visible learning work that you were doing? Did you recognize that at the start and go in with an intention of it being that, or did you discover that along the way?
I think we had an inkling, and one of the ways was one of the indicators that it might be the best move forward, as when we were looking at our new strategic plan, was the everyday language that was used in the engagement continuum, and understanding how easy it was to remember just from one, reading a little bit of your work or seeing the graphic even, and being able to remember that so easily, I think made us realize pretty quickly that it was going to be the way to go. Just the language just flowed so naturally from all of our teachers very quickly. So as soon as we found ourselves using that language so quickly, we knew that it was worth investing in to drive our new engagement strategic plan.
And then before I open it up, more to the team, I do want to highlight, because you're probably not going to flag it yourself, since it was some greatness on your part, Leanne. But you played a really pivotal role as well in being on the lookout for potential roadblocks and places where staff might need a little bit more support and professional learning than what they got out of just one day with me. And I that was really important too. So to have somebody there who is really thinking about that, I think was important. And maybe you can tell a little bit about the extra support that you provided to help staff, especially at the start.
So we looked a little deeper in autonomy supportive teacher behaviours. And we always looked at, but also spent a fair bit of time looking at controlling teacher behaviours and autonomy supportive, competent supportive, making sure that, using a bit of DC and Ryan's work around psychological needs theory, and making sure that the teachers and the students had the environment that was going to enable the motivation and then, of course, the learning engagement to happen. Joanne's going to talk a little more from a person who did her own schooling in China around the impact that had on her from the teacher behaviours and how that impacts learning engagement. So I think Joanne's better placed than me to answer that question.
Okay, well, let's hear, Joanne. I'm all ears.
Hello, Amy. How are you? Look, it is really quite an eye-opener from the beginning. So we, as you know, Mawson is a bilingual school, and we deliver it's called Mandarin in the program. So 50 of the time is shared to teach the Australian curriculum in English and in Mandarin. So for the mid classes, it's a big challenge because I grew up in China and was educated in Beijing. Autonomy supportive is a very foreign concept to me because we are very teacher-centered. Teacher will decide the agenda, teacher will decide the content and how we teach, what we're going to learn. So it's very dictated by the teaching side, so it's all outside of the approach. I guess I had to learn myself to start from scratch. How do I change these sounds into me dancing and trying to get the kids entertained and engaged? It became a two-way street. So it's more a partnership. So it's more about we are doing this dance, and there's two people in this dance. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I lead, and other times you lead, is all about how to maximize to how to get more students more engaged and more often. So that has changed my way of looking at education at a quite fundamental level. And it's challenging. I'm still learning. I hope I'm an expert. I'm better at it. I'm stronger at it than when I first started.
And Joanne, I mean, you bring up such an important point that I think people don't give enough thought to, and that is how important it is to support our teachers in this time of change, and allow them the space and the time to grow and learn. Right? You know, we're not robots, so it's not a case of just saying, "Here's a new thing, now go and do it." You know, we rarely give our teachers enough time to struggle with learning, and we expect to see immediate results when we have a change in practice. You know, almost like you know, somehow the rules of learning don't apply to us as teachers. That we should be able to get things immediately, and be an expert in them straight away. And it just doesn't work like that. So I think to hear you describe the challenge of learning something new and trying to change the way that you've been doing things for quite a period of time is, you know, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, the culture shifts and it's game changer.
So
Can
how did you?
too, Amy?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, I mean, Joanne is obviously just listening to her talk. It is so uplifting to hear because regardless of what the struggle might be for her, she is so immersed in it. But also Leanne very much supported all of us in the beginning to understand the why of bringing in this additional perspective, I guess. So we really explicitly had the opportunity to understand the connection between visible learning, between personal and social capabilities, between the engagement continuum, between psychological need. They were all really clearly and visibly discussed and connected for us. So we already had that kind of holistic picture going into it. It wasn't just that this is a new challenge for you. Chuck everything else out. Now you have to focus on this, which was so important that Leanne provided that for us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the engagement continuum supports the personal and social capabilities so naturally. So the language often overlaps, and the when you're looking at curriculum, you know, as educators, we need to be focused on the Australian curriculum, and so this allowed us to provide those that scaffold along the self-awareness, you know, elements of the personal and social capabilities.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw a little bit of the work that was done to help people to connect the dots. And I think, Leanne, one of the things that I really liked about it and was inspired by was that you didn't, that you walked the talk with your learners by not telling them what the connections were, but by scaffolding them and helping them to identify the connections themselves. And I think, you know, I've used that example that you shared with me with other schools. Sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't worked very well. I think where it's worked is where the school already has a clear idea of the key initiatives or programs that they have in place and what they're about, and then is trying to integrate the continuum in and see where it connects with those. And it doesn't work very well with a school that may have a lot of things going on, but no one really understands them in a deep enough way to be able to make those connections with something new. So I think for other schools that are interested in trying to help staff to connect the dots, which is a great thing to do, you do need to think about how clear everybody is on the existing dots before you try to connect in with those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess the essential dots, you know, the Australian curriculum needs to be essential to our work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're spending time in professional learning that's not going to meet the achievement standards, then it would be quite easy to lose track from a strategic focus of a school perspective. So I think that I think that worked out well. That as soon as we made that link, we then had a really clear purpose for our planning and of the professional learning. And when you liaised with myself around what the next step would have been, that was always very easy because we were able to see what the gaps were, and you came in and filled those gaps around when we did the peers partnerships, and also when you did the teachers partnerships, 12 months ago now. And that development has, just kind of carried on.
I mean, it's been a joy working with you. When I work with schools, well, I work in lots of different ways because I'm their partner. So that's why I don't have a one-size-fits-all model, because, I kind of, I want them to take the lead in their learning, because I know, especially after working with you, they need to drive it. I'm not there all the time. And if they're looking to me to drive the work, they're not going to go very far at all. So I think having that relationship with you, where I know that in between times when I visit you, there is a lot of work happening, that you are progressing, that you continue to grow and take it further. And then leading up to my visit, I know that I will get an email to say, hey, we need a bit of help with this particular thing. Can you come and do a little bit of professional learning around this? And that targets you at the need that you've identified for yourself. So to me, that's a really good example of a school and a staff that are driving their learning forward. So it's a joy to work with you. And I think that probably translates into the classroom. So we'll go deeper dive into the classroom now. Excuse me. But, I think from my experience, and I'm hoping from your experience, when you start to experience the joy of working with children who are actively driving their own learning, it's hard to want to go back to anything different. When you see how enjoyable and satisfying that is for us as a teacher, suddenly you don't want to control things anymore, because it's just not as good.
I think it's very true. That is very true. And when you see that partnership happening and children have buy-in in what they are learning, and guided by the teacher, it is very rewarding. It's like a positive feedback loop, and they are wanting to learn more and spending more time engaged on learning. So I'm really I'm really chuffed to see we're in this together.
Yeah.
And we are, perhaps at the the front of the waves of engagement.
And I mean, we have to be motivated. If we're not motivated, then this is just dead in the water. Like, it's not going to go anywhere. So, and we have to maintain that motivation, and that's hard. And if I'm not seeing any success, if I'm not seeing any positive impact for all of my hard work, I'm likely to give up on this thing pretty quickly, because, why would I bother investing my effort and energy into this? So I think, having small wins early on and being able to really see the difference and the impact is really important. Otherwise, people will give up on it.
Yeah.
So, but that brings me to another point, which is, something that we've learned through working together is that, surprise, surprise, adults are like kids, and people follow their own pathway and progress at different rates. They have different levels of readiness for the work. They require different amounts of time and different sorts of supports to help them with it. And so, we need to not only give teachers time to learn, but also acknowledge that they're all individuals, and not everybody will stay together the whole time and do everything exactly the same way. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what this looks like in different teaching teams or different year levels.
Yeah, let's hear from Olivia, who led the falling off the engagement in our kindergarten team.
I love it.
We decided in Kindy, on your advice, to focus on the upper end of the continuum, participating, investing, driving. We figure that's already quite a lot for kindergarteners to take on in their very first year of primary school, and to keep it positive and light, and they're still learning how to be at school. So we decided to focus on that. We've done a lot of unpacking of the vocabulary, the words. Participating, what does that mean? What does it look like when I'm participating? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Our good old Y charts that we use. We've done a lot of talking about that. We've done a lot of talking about what I need to do to be participating or investing or driving, but also what I need to do for others to be able to do that as well. And then we had this gap of, what happens when they're not on that part of the continuum? What do we do? What do we say? We don't really at this point want to say you're avoiding or withdrawing or disrupting, because we are trying to make school super fun and super enjoyable in that very first year. So we just started saying, whoops, it looks like you've fallen off the continuum. What can you do, or how can I help you to get back into it? And a lot of the time it's straighten up and sit up, and we're trying to move away from that big edge of continuum of sitting and looking and listening. But it's not a bad start when they're 5.
Yeah.
And we have started hearing other kids say, Lydia, you've fallen off the continuum. How did you get back on? So it's, along with it being very cute, it's really helpful for us that we don't have to be on top of them all the time. They're now using the language themselves. They're now using am I participating? Am I investing? We have our Y charts up on the wall. So if they've forgotten or they're, blanking on what that word might mean, or how could I get up to investing or driving, we've got it up on the wall. Remember when we discussed investing, it looked like this. Are you doing that? Great. How could you now move into driving? At this time of the year, there's a lot of, I think you've fallen off. It's week 8, term 4.
Yeah.
But our goal in Kindy was to really embed that upper end of the continuum into their vocab and how they use it in school when they are just learning how to be in school. It's such a big jump from preschool to kindy that we just wanted to make it fun, and we use it when we're reading to them in picture books. What does it look like they're doing in this book? And that person looks like they're participating because they're doing it X, Y, and Z, like we said we would do. So, to make it fun as well.
Olivia, I love it, and I mean, for me, it's such a great example of how we can decriminalize disengagement from the very beginning, rather than have to change their mind after 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years of school, when they've already developed the strong idea that being disengaged is a bad thing, and people are going to pass judgment on you for being disengaged, and it's not something that I want to admit to. So rather than having to fix that problem later on, how great to start by instilling the understanding that sometimes we fall off the continuum. Sometimes that just happens in learning. And it's not a reason to get in trouble. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. People aren't going to think badly of you. It's just something that happens as a natural part of learning. And it's also such a developmentally appropriate way of approaching this work with our youngest learners. Now, something I will flag is I know there are other schools out there that decide, okay, in our kindergarten, we're going to tackle the whole continuum. And that's what I also love about the work. There is no right way of doing this. The right way is the right way for you and your students in your context at that time. That's what you need to think about. So there is not a step-by-step way of doing this, and then you must follow those steps. People have to think about their context, and there's lots of different elements that go into that. Our learners, our community, our teachers, what we already have in place, lots of things to think about. And I think for you, you chose a pathway that worked really well for you. And that pathway might also work really well for other people who are working in the early years. But it could be a different pathway for different
It
people,
also
which is
worked
fine
really,
too.
sorry. It works
That's
really
fine.
well with us as well because we are a bilingual school who they're having that language as well. And we also have a very high EALD population. So trying to have them understand the word participating, the word investing, and the word driving in a language that is not their home language was another layer to it for us. So that's why as well we really want to chunk it into that upper end of the continuum.
And I think through discussions that we had at the school, you know, the one of the lovely things about working with you is the interconnectedness of the staff and how much they view each other as partners in this. And when we start to see each other as partners, we understand that it's not any one teacher's responsibility to do all of the work for these kids in 1 year that they have them. It's a collective responsibility. And so you've started the journey that these children will take in learning about learning, in learning about themselves as learners, including their engagement. But you don't need to do everything in kindy. You know, you start the journey and then and you can trust that your partners in the next year level and beyond will pick that up and continue to build on that. And I think that's an important thing to remember, you know, when we're teachers. We don't shoulder the full responsibility all the time. We can look to each other to collectively share this responsibility. Okay. What about small groups?
Okay, yep. So just to give you a little background, so I'm new here this year, so this was a huge learning curve for me because I was brand new to Mawson and learning all about Mawson and the culture here, but also had never heard of the learning engagement continuum before. So, but there was I needed a lot of time to grow and learn at my own pace. And I'm with my small group. I had, you know, I've got K-3 in one room, and there's a huge range of needs, and also specifically language needs. There's, so in the beginning of the year, what I did is I focused on just getting my head above water, and we did a lot of work on the zones of regulation, which is a common, framework to help kids with self-regulation. And with the zone that, there's no bad zone. Everyone experiences all the zones, and it works on identifying emotions. And it is also a color kind of related thing. And then after the first semester, I said, okay, my next step is I'm going to start with this engagement on continuum. And actually, I'm not just going to be really honest. I did not expect it to have the amount of power and success that it had at these kids. Because again, I've been talking to other staff. They're like, wow, that's a lot of, and it is big words. There's a lot of things there, but we just broke it down and we laid it over top of the zones. And so basically, the participating, investing, and driving are the green zone. And then that means you're ready to learn. And then the other ones it could be one of the other zones. And it could be, it's not necessarily that. It might be that you're not well. Or maybe it's because, something else is going on. Maybe you need a sensory break. Maybe you're not ready to learn because something happened at recess. Let's get you ready to learn. So laying it over that way, initially there was a little bit of color confusion, but after that, the way we mapped it on the wall, the kids really liked it. And we again did the similar format as Kendi did, as really having the kids mapping it out. And as you can see, I've got some of my visuals here, and some of it is dynamic. We've been changing it. But it really helped. And the kids are doing this. I'm just going to point out, they're not doing it. They want to be smarter. They are so invested in their learning. They want to be smarter at reading, smarter at math. And they know that this is how I do it. And I don't know if you know anything about kids who are ASD or kids who, they love structure and routine. It's like they know, they want to know
how can I be driving? How can I be investing? And we also look at non-examples. Okay, well, if you're crying, something's going on, then we need to help you deal with that crying so that we can get you back here. And part of the huge impact, I think, out of all is accepting feedback. That was a really tricky thing for my kids. Not only like, and we use this not just for learning in the classroom, but actually learning on the playground, like driving your friendships, asking friends, accepting, invitations to play. But it really has helped the kids to accept the feedback in that we put it here that, learning from my mistakes so that you can be here withdrawing and I can give you feedback about maybe you need to change it. Maybe you would like to move your chair and face closer so you can see, making that, and that automatically takes you, you're learning from your mistakes, accepting the feedback that it's not just you have to go from here to here to here. That has really helped, that they know that you can be here and you can get right back when you're learning. So that really has made a huge impact on my students in a way that I didn't think it would. And because this is like right in center in our room, and I'd say 80% of them will actually use the exact terminology. And they'll point out their friends, you're driving, you're learning. So I'm actually really, this is something that I'm going to continue to use, whether I stay at Mawson forever or wherever I go. I'm going to take this with me. Anyway,
and I think what you're talking about really touches on the whole concept of teacher clarity. And we know how important clarity is for, supporting learning, and what a boost it is when we have teachers who are clear, who have clear success criteria mapped out, where the students know what they need to do to be successful. And they understand it in a way that they can then use those to monitor their own progress, to reflect, to self-evaluate. So it's a key to supporting them in those more, aspirational goals that are around self-regulated learning. We have to have this level of clarity in place if they're going to be able to effectively regulate their own learning. So our job as a partner to them is to provide that clarity and make sure that that scaffold is in place for them so that they can make use of it. So it's great to hear that it's working so well for your students. And, again, pleasing that it didn't take you too long to pick up.
No.
We don't want things to be so complicated that it takes people forever until they're ready. And I've worked with schools that I guess have an experience of working with programs that are really complicated. And so sometimes what happens is the leaders will come to me after day one or in the middle of day one and say, we've got some teachers who are really keen and they're already making plans for what they're going to do tomorrow. Should we stop them? Should we tell them to wait and hold off? Should we slow them down? Which I always think is interesting. I mean, you can imagine what my response is. No, why would you do that? I think it's because they're afraid. Well, I know it's because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong. They're afraid they're going to make a mistake, that somehow, they're not ready to really put it into action because it has to be perfect, which is worrying because you think about the kind of message that sends to the children at the school. If the teachers have to be doing, be perfect before they can use something or try something out. So it speaks to a bigger culture problem within a school when I hear those kinds of responses. Okay. Well, let's shift to the other end and talk about the amazing work that's happened up in the Year 5-6 team.
Okay, we just lost our lights, so we've got the mood lighting now. I've been really fortunate with our cohort that I've been with them for 2 years, so I've watched the same kids progress through our learning as a school with the engagement continuum, which has been really, really interesting. So starting last year,
because they're senior students, and our whole goal really is to make sure that we have independent learners who are ready to go off to high school, that they have that kind of skill set, that they are going to self-manage. So bringing in the engagement continuum last year was initially about asking them what that needed to look like for them. So we also did the Y charts. We created this wall of engagement that was their perception of what they needed to bring to different levels of engagement, what teachers needed to bring, and what was a partnership to bring. So they identified all of those things, and we mapped that across our back cupboards, which was really interesting to begin with, because they had a lot of statements about what they thought they needed from themselves. It was actually harder for them to identify what they thought they needed from a teacher, or what was our joint responsibility. And I think that was a new conversation for them, that they were recognizing that actually it's not a teacher-directed situation, or you in isolation with your own personal goal, pushing yourself off to the side, that we are a team. So that's where we started. And that conversation was across the year. We just kept building on that. And then this year we have gone back to our same engagement wall, and we've now annotated it. So they've gone back and they've read what they wrote last year, and they've reflected on that, and they've questioned that, and they've wondered why they thought that in the first place. And we've actually physically suffered little speech bubbles with their annotations on there as their perception of what engagement means to them and for our learning space has changed. And that was enormously powerful. So once they did that, they now have their own personal little engagement continuums that is physically there for them to refer to if they want. Most of them don't physically refer to it because it's now something that's in the back of their mind that we can just sort of verbally tap into. What does this look like for you? Where are you right now? Oh, I'm avoiding right now. Do you know why? Yeah, because tell me. So do you need some support to move out of that, or are you good to move out of it yourself? How are you going to do that? They've already mapped what that looks like to them as an individual. How do they move out of that? And like Lydia was saying, there's never any conversation about it being a linear progression either. You don't go from disrupting to withdrawing to avoiding, or you can move in any direction.
Yeah.
And you do move in any direction throughout the day, and so do I. And so I model that as well. And we as senior teachers are very open in modeling that as well, that this is how I'm investing right now, or this is how I am going to drive my learning as a teacher in this area.
Yeah.
So do it in kindy too.
Yeah.
So, whoops, this is learner's fallen off the continuum.
That complete transparency that this is actually a human trait, that we are always learning how to learn, and we are always learning how to better ourselves. And that once you have that shared ability to communicate that, you can support each other on that journey and help each other to recognize it. But I feel quite confident that most of our senior cohort are leaving us with some really good skills for learning and that introspection, which is really powerful.
I mean, I think you're right. It's hard to imagine a world where they would lose that, now that they have it. It's hard to imagine. The challenge will be, okay, how do I take what I know and what I know is possible and what I can do, and apply that in a different context and make that work. So, but I think, they're in a really good position. And you bring up, such an important point too about the partnership. And I've had others, say to me, oh, hey, we're really struggling to help our students understand that this is a partnership. And And I think, that is a struggle. It is a challenge that we face in the partnership, getting everybody to understand what we mean by partnership and why it's a partnership. But it's not just about getting the students to understand, it's about teachers to understand too, the partnership and what our role is. And your description of the students, I just find so interesting, and such an insight that one of the things that they needed to develop was an awareness of what they need as a learner, and the bits about that need that they can attend to themselves, but then also the help that you as a partner might come in and support them with. And that's pretty complex. And so that we don't just get born with those kinds of things. That takes a bit of practice. That takes some serious support and scaffolding to get to a place where I know myself as a learner. I know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And I am empowered to advocate for what I need from my partners. Not looking to my partners to rescue me, but, intentionally kind of staying in the driver's seat, and speaking out for, how can you help me? And this is what you do at Mawson as well with me. You don't say to me, well, what should we do next, Amy? You've never said that. You always come to me saying, we're struggling with this. Maybe you could do that, and directing me. So staying in the driver's seat always, and seeking the help that you need.
I think that's part of the partnership as well, that both parties are prepared for that feedback.
Yeah.
So the students are prepared for my feedback, but I'm also prepared for their feedback, that they might not be getting what they need out of me, and they might need to make adjustments too.
Sure.
Back at the start, Laura, I remember talking to Laura about how she got the kids to show her what they thought participating, investing and driving was.
Yeah, I actually did that at the staff meeting, didn't I? So they did like a tableau where they showed what they thought it looked like to be in each of these stages, and we took photos of them. But then I caught them actually in those stages during a particularly fantastic task that they were doing, and it's very different to their perception, which again comes back to that idea of if I sit still and look in the right direction, I must be, driving my learning, rather than what it actually looks like, which was much louder and much messier. And they were asking questions, and they were supporting each other, and there were hands everywhere because they were physically helping each other. Very different to what they initially thought. So I actually showed them the juxtaposition of those images and asked them why they thought one, which could still be driving or investing or whatever it was that we were talking about at the time, but why they had the assumption that that's what it had to look like, which then comes back to what Leanne was saying about learning dispositions and visible learning. Initially, this idea that there was this construct of what it should look like rather than what it feels like and what it is in action. So that kind of active instead of passive, I guess.
And I have to get an update on the Great Wall of Engagement. I need to see a picture. So with the annotations, which I think, it's fabulous. Everything you're talking about to me is like, oh, they've got evidence there. Oh, they've got some more evidence there. Oh, they grab the more. It's great, because often schools, they really struggle with, how do we know if it's working? How do we gather evidence so that we can evaluate the impact that we're having? And they really get stuck and narrow-minded in their view of evidence, and that becomes a roadblock for them. So, everything that you've described here from all of the different groups, I just think evidence everywhere. If you just care to look and see it as evidence, you have it everywhere. Yeah. So that's great. Were there surprises in the annotations? What surprised you?
Yeah, there were some surprises. Some of the things that I thought were quite obvious suggestions initially from the first round were questioned. And some of the reasoning behind that, when I asked them, to unpack it. They only had a little thing to write. So then some of it, I needed to ask them, well, why did you write that? Some of them were starting to think really deeply about what learning actually looks like and changing their perception from that construct that I was talking about just before. So some of them were saying things like, well, do they have to do that? Or does it have to sound like that? So the questioning of actually that was my, I guess, assumption that it would look like that. And they're not necessarily questioning their own statements from a year before, they're questioning anybody's.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
looking at those statements and going, well, why did you think that was important? There were a couple saying, why was that important? Or what were you thinking when you wrote that? That hasn't been important at all. So, and valuing everybody's opinion, obviously, that might be true for one person, but not for another.
Yeah.
The shift in the mentality was what surprised me, that there was quite a depth of behind it. These were specifically from my Year 6 students that I had the year before.
Yes.
I did also do the same activity with the Year 5 students that I teach, and they didn't have the same depth of annotation. They made some fairly obvious kind of observations about what they agreed and disagreed with. However, I am teaching them again next year, and I would like to do a version of the same task next year to keep building on it, to see where they go.
A longitudinal study where we're building here. We're going to say you can never move year levels. That's it.
Unfortunately, the wall itself may have to
Okay, so I guess let's go back to the school level then and talk about challenges that you've had along the way, because I think a theme that we've seen here is that learning is challenging, change is challenging, and it requires a level of motivation and persistence and doing hard things. So what were your challenges along the way, Leanne?
Well, before I speak about that, I think it's really important that the people listening to this podcast understand that we're not in an oasis of perfect learners that have this really deep, self-reflective way of looking at the world. We do have students here that have, adverse childhood experience. We have students with learning differences and learning disabilities that have all developed as a learning from your learning continuum. So they are all able, for the learners that Laura was just talking about, some of those learners were not showing anywhere near that level of self-awareness, 24 months ago. So that foundational knowledge that was given, and really our journey is only 24 months old with learning engagement, that has just developed in that pretty short amount of time. Okay, so from a school perspective, this is a very difficult question to find something that's been hard. And I think the reason why it's a challenging question is that the language is all so accessible and it can be done at a surface level and make an impact. And then it can be done, as Laura just explained, at a very deep analytical perspective and have a huge impact. So even if the engagement continuum is done in a very simplified form, there will be learners in that learning environment that are accessing, even if it is just the coloured dots, so that there is that element. And that is, I don't think I've had a teacher that hasn't remembered at least the labels on the engagement continuum. I think that has just been embedded very quickly. Obviously, you have challenges with, we haven't forced a whole school engagement continuum. We're playing with one, and I think that is because, the context is always so different. And but what is universal is that, what do you do when the learning is hard? What's your go-to behavior? And then the engagement continuum provides a universal language, a shared language across all teachers, all students, all support teachers, around what your go-to behavior is, and is that behavior helpful, and is that going to help you have a great quality of life? If every time the learning gets hard you choose to go to the toilet, or you choose to start disrupting the learning of others, because it doesn't really matter, both of them are unhelpful. So I mean, from a leadership perspective, I feel like I've just had such buy-in from everybody across the board that I haven't really needed to be challenged by that. I mean, we have 87% of teachers who are engaged in, who see it as their job to promote driving learning engagement. We have, from our school students survey data, we have 90% of students say that their teacher, that they engage in their learning, that school is for engaging in learning. And then from our school-wide data, we also have, I can't quite remember the number, but I think it's like close to 80% that their teacher talks to them about learning engagement. So we have really high buy-in from the whole school community across the board. That really hasn't been too much hard work on my part. I had an injury earlier in the year, and that meant that I was out of the school for about 10 weeks. And when I came back, it felt like the energy was as if I'd never left. So that is testament to the accessible language that the engagement continuum provides.
And the point that you've got to in having it so embedded, I think means that it's, I guess, looking like it's sustainable, that it doesn't require a person making sure it's happening every day, because it is being embedded.
Yeah, and I think, everyone's driving their own journey, and that would be a controlling leadership behavior, which we all know is unhelpful. We're better off having autonomous, supportive things. I think Lydia's
Can I just say something? Because I finished, this is my 27th year teaching. Taught on 3 different continents. I've taught in like beginning level schools in the Middle East, and I think there is something about this is a very special place. It's got very strong leadership, it's very organized, it's very supportive, it's very well-resourced. So I think if you look at that very strong foundation, I feel like as a new teacher, I could come in here and automatically thrive. I'm very well supported, and I did not have an easy cohort. But the fact that I was given, like, somebody didn't come into my room in week 2 and say, okay, where's your engagement continuum? It needs to be up, we need to be doing this. They let me get my feet on the ground. And then and then they spiral it. It's spiraled so that you're constantly coming back to, and I got a little bit, and then I got a little bit more, and I know where I need to go. Like, I still have to work on like the comfort, the stretch and the panic. That's like my next thing, is looking at that part, because I haven't gotten that down yet, but I feel like I know where I am now. And I think there is something about this place that's very unique, that is enabling it to be so well established and well, I don't know what the word, taken up by everybody here and supported, because you're in an environment that allows it to be that way. And it's intentionally set up to make you be successful. Like, I feel like I've been set up to be successful with this year, because all of my other basic needs are met. I'm supported, and I've been given the resources I need to make this happen.
And trusted.
Yeah, and trusted that, that, and again, I have to get my head around things in a certain way. Like, I'm a little bit nervy. That I had to be like, oh my God, how am I going to work this in with my zones and everything? And it did. Like, I'm very happy, but I really appreciate that I was given the time and space to do that.
Can I piggyback on that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I felt the same way in kindergarten as well, because we were pretty much all a new kindergarten team put together.
sort of implementing this for the first time, and we were allowed to do it at our own pace. We sort of spent the first half of the year getting these kids in, getting them learning how to be kindy. We have to do PBL. We talk about visible learning. There's a lot of things for them to take in their first year of kinder. And we found even when we were in our half-yearly meeting with our principal, it was, what have you done on engagement? Well, we've started using the words, but we haven't fully gotten into the nitty-gritty yet because they're not ready. And we were just told, great, no worries. That's what those kids need at that time. Go, like, we trust you.
Yeah.
And now they know those words so well, and we didn't actually start fully implementing it until the start of term 3. But that's when they were ready. So I just feel the same way. Yeah.
Can I piggyback off that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So I think something that could have been a challenge or might be for some schools that wasn't for us is exactly that, with having something new brought in and trying to force it to fit with already existing structures or expecting it to exist alongside already existing structures. I'm thinking specifically of PBL. So for us, while we had the opportunity to talk through what was a connection and how things did fit together, we've also sat with and accepted where things don't necessarily, they're not going to be forced together. We're not going to try and make something all one big complicated package if it doesn't make sense. And so there's been times as a staff where we've talked through what is and isn't working as a connection. And we've sat with that, and we've been allowed to be uncomfortable with that, and we've been allowed to question it, and we've been allowed to take it in a direction that makes sense for our school context without any of that being kind of pushed on us.
Yeah.
It's expected to cope with it. It's really been, I feel like it's, for the most part, been something that we've kind of organically grown with over the last 24 months. And I think it's a school did try and bring on new things and push them in with what already existed and expect that to work. I think that would be much harder.
Your buy-in would be much less.
Your buy-in would be much less. Your struggle would be much greater. And I feel like, I just feel like it could still potentially work, I guess. But I'm just saying that I feel that would be very challenging. If that were the case.
I think you're right. I mean, if we think of a staff room or a school as a different version of a classroom, the same things apply in terms of the importance of having a safe and supportive, environment. People need to feel heard, valued, supported. It needs to be okay to test yourself, make mistakes. Try things out, learn from your mistakes. It needs to be okay to say, I'm struggling with this. Can I get some help? All of those things hold true for teachers as much as they hold true for, 5-year-olds in a kindy classroom. So what you're all describing is the importance of the culture within the school, that it needs to be happening at the classroom level, but it needs to be happening across the school, that this is a place for people to be inspired to and supported to learn and feel safe to be, involving themselves in the challenge of learning on a daily basis. And that's what you've done so well.
I would like just to pick up on what you're saying there from a me perspective, because we're coming from this strong Asian culture, if you like, because we are highly allergic towards like failure and mistakes. Not existing. We're like to vocabulary. And this is a new thing for us. Because what I find it really helpful is it gives us a tangible tool as a MIG teacher to decouple the behavior and the person. So it's really useful in the sense that, your level of engagement has changed. It's not like you're a bad learner. You are very naughty. You are learning. You're not driving right now, right? This really is so helpful. We can actually I describe it with Leanne. It's like whipping the person, not the person, the act, not the actor. So you feel like you're being pulled up or, told off, but it's not you. We're telling the behavior. So it really gives the tool to enable us as a teacher, as an educator, especially from a Chinese background, to say that your level of engagement, check your level of engagement now. Is it going to enable you to be successful, to achieve the goal you want to achieve right now? And that is the label. Oh, this is not me. I've just been told off. But I feel okay. I feel
It's like you're on their side, though. It's like you're on their side and you're just going, hey, psst, you might want to check your level of engagement, are you on track?
You're totally back on the continuum.
Yeah, you're pulling up the continuum,
Yeah. Okay, we're learning how to embrace mistakes, how to embrace it in a way that you don't lose face, you don't feel embarrassed, you don't have a bad reflection on you as a person. I'm learning that. I was telling my team leaders at the beginning of the year, I said, oh God, this is gonna make me feel really bad because I feel personally responsible for all of my students loving their well-being, their happiness, and everything involved in their school life is my responsibility now. Look at you now. Look at me now. We are partnering. I've got partners in teachers, with our staff, with our colleagues.
Yeah.
And I've got partners in students, and students got partners in learning. So it's a journey we're all in together. We got we got Amy on the journey with us together. It is really just so empowering. And it makes you feel like, oh, all right, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have to do this all by myself. It's not all down to me.
Yeah.
I think one other thing that I'll call out, because it just keeps coming to my mind when I'm listening to you talk, is the curiosity with which you approach this work. And to me, that just brings me so much joy, because you really get it. When we approach things as curious people, we are positioning ourselves as learners who are keen to learn more and understand better. And that is a fundamental shift, I think, that teachers need to make away from finding problems and fixing problems, and towards this more curious mindset of a learner. And it's, I think it's easy for me to describe, maybe, but harder to, I guess, have it happen or, engineer it yourself. But you have everything that you're saying today. It just comes out in all of your discussions that this is clearly a strong disposition across your staff. And what a wonderful model that is then for your learners to see every day in their teachers. This is what it means to be a curious learner, and how powerful is it to maintain curiosity in the world about us and in ourselves. So, yay, hats off to you. And I like to end in the same way that we ended all of our focus groups when we ran them with the students in our last study, and that is top tips. For others out there who are either thinking about starting, or maybe, right in the middle of it, what are your top tips that you've learned from your experience?
So from a leadership perspective, from a professional learning mapping, what you just described then, you're wanting to get staff buy-in through curiosity, not from compliance, because compliance is a controlling strategy. And we know that when we're compliant in something, we're not going to move past participating. Whereas when we're allowed to be curious, we're also enabling investing and driving learning.
Great.
I think that's the same for our senior students, actually, that you will hook them in with curiosity, not compliance, because it could just be another thing that they're expected to learn at school. And also I think don't underestimate the capacity that your students have to really to get this deeply over time, and be prepared to be flexible yourself. Be prepared to maybe feel uncomfortable, and that's okay.
Great.
Well, I would say having a clear understanding, I guess, what is teachable, what is not teachable, because I feel this is building on that intrinsic motivation is what works for driving. We need to have a good balance of both. So I guess we try not to do too much all at once. You're not going to get 100% of the students engaged 100% of the time.
Great.
Just aim for what you can do to get more students engaged more often, more engaged more often, and also try and address things you can, like the environment, like the build that culture and the expectation, and allow children to stray in a safe environment, not trying to whip them in shape, because they can learn to behave in a certain way. Are they being a driving learner, or are they performing a driving learner? So we need to be able to tell the difference. Are they being themselves, or are they performing to be a student, a good learner?
I think specifically for kindergarten in that first year, I think just my top tip would be just to take it slowly. You do not have to do every little part of it straight away.
Yeah.
The kids need to know, first of all, where their classroom is, their friends' names, where the toilet is, where they play, before they can even think about the words participating, investing, and driving. I think it's just take it slow in kindy, get to know your students, get to know where they're at, but again, don't underestimate their capability, because they'll get it when they're ready to get it. And that if that's not until to this year, semester 2 for us, so be it. But now they have a really deep understanding of that part of continuum, because we took our time. Yeah.
Right.
For me, I think, again, is having a very accessible visual display with visuals so the kids can really connect the terms to the different levels, but also reinforcing that, you're not always driving all the time, and that driving doesn't have to be this big thing. It can be little moments of driving, and really pointing out to the kids very explicitly, I really love the way that you were driving when you did this, or you're investing so that they are getting that positive reinforcement because they are doing these things. And you really want a positive reinforcement. They can say, oh, I am doing all these things. I am such a learner. And I am moving up and down and not falling off that front part there all the time.
Yeah.
So that's one way to talk to it.
And, and that is so powerful, because the alternative is we have children who remain dependent on and have to rely on other people, namely the teacher, to tell them if they're doing it right, if they're learning, if they're engaged, if they're not. And that, that's not really what we want. We want to empower them to be able to have the answer for themselves, and not have to rely on somebody else to give them that answer. Well, thank you so much. It's always a joy to have conversations with you, and it's been such a joy to be on the journey with you. And I'm really glad that we can share this more widely with other people, because there's a lot to learn from your experience. And I will continue to share all of your great examples, because they really help people to see how it's really done in the real world of the classroom. So thank you for being generous with those as well. The team at Mawson has been working on learner engagement for the last 2 years. This has included occasional visits from me, as well as in-house professional learning. That's included linking of learning engagement with their current visible learning practices, and also linking in with the personal and social capabilities of the Australian curriculum that they follow. It's included expanding their use of autonomy supportive practices rather than controlling practices. It's also included establishing a clear and consistent set of practices around supporting learner engagement across the school, and developing a clear understanding of the relationship between using PBL, or positive behavior for learning, as a framework for school engagement, and using the engagement continuum for learner engagement in the classroom. And the leadership team at Mawson have done a really amazing job of supporting teachers to learn and develop their understanding and skills in supporting engagement. And we heard about the experience of one of their new teachers in how she felt in being supported as a new person in the school to learn all about the continuum and how it might be used. The schools used a combination of strategies to support their teachers to learn, including action research within their teaching teams, something that I helped out with, and book study in their professional learning community, and also the use of appreciative inquiry, a strengths-based approach for organizational change, to help build momentum and support teachers to embed this engagement work in daily teaching and learning in a deep and impactful way. If you want to find out more about the work they've been doing at Mawson, or maybe connect with the team and ask them some more questions, you can head on over to the Engagement Hub and join our community. It's free to join. Just go to the engagementhub.com, and I hope to see you there.